Hi there. Welcome to the God's Eye Production Podcast. This week, I'm on the road, so I'm taking advantage of the little bit of snow that we have left by going up to the ski resort that I grew up around. But anyway, this week, just kind of a brief one, I guess. Pardon the road turbulence that I'm experiencing at the moment. There's construction up here. So, I've been thinking about this week is there is nothing new under the sun. So that comes from the book of Ecclesiastes. I'm not quite sure the verse and the chapter, and we'll put that in the show notes so you can puzzle that out further. But there's nothing new under the sun. So that means that my one of my friends, the last time I went skiing, which I think was last weekend, he was talking about a new artist that had come on the scene and how all of her songs were worldly and about the flesh. He didn't use those exact words, but for our purposes here, we'll say that. And I said to him, well, yes, that's right. It's because that's what's selling. So that was what's selling when we were kids, and that's what's continually to sell now. There's nothing new under the sun. People act like all of these things are new and controversial and shocking. I mean, let's just take one kind of leap into old media. Back in the old days of black and white television, there was a young man by the name of Elvis Presley, and they couldn't film him from the waist down because they were afraid that it would cause women to sin. And so they ended up filming him from the waist up because of that. Later on, there was a little band that I don't think any of you know, very obscure band by the name of the Beatles, and they were causing women to scream uncontrollably and start crying because they had never experienced this level of fandom, I guess is what you would call it today. Very intense interests, hyper-focus, I guess, if you will. And you can watch old clips on YouTube of the Ed Sullivan Show, and it's not scripted. It's the way that they're reacting because it had never been done before. So in some ways they were very controversial for different reasons. I think at one point one of their members said that they were more famous than Jesus. Point is that there's nothing new under the sun. So by the same token, the Elvis of my generation is different from the Elvis of your generation. But once again, courting controversy for the sake of, in today's world, would be clicks and likes. In that time period, it was for the sake of airplay. I highly encourage you to watch old media because it gives you a window into the way things are and the way the things were. And if you can approach it from not a nostalgic lens, but sort of like a critical lens, filter within a biblical worldview, I think you would find that a lot of the things that we're worried about in this time period were very similar to what they were worried about in that time period. The best example of this that I can think of is the show All in the Family. So that was a show that came out, I think, in the mid-70s. Don't quote me on that. But they were talking about how the liberals were taking over and things were better with Hoover in office, and how men were men and women were women. And if you actually, her voice is kind of annoying, I believe, by the way it's supposed to be. But if you actually get to beyond kind of the screechiness in her voice, and I think that's on purpose, and actually listen to the lyrics, you can actually see that the same things that people are upset about today and the rhetoric and all that stuff was the same things they were said about then. So there's nothing new under the sun. So the thing that really bothers you now as a parent, the thing that you did when you were a child, really bothered your parents. Now, does that give the next generation and your generation an excuse to sin or to court the flesh? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. But when you see the news, which I recommend that you don't consume a lot of news. For our purposes here, I'd say stick to local news and the weather and then turn it off. They've done a study, and I'll have to find it, but basically people who watch the news a lot don't feel like they're in control, and so watching the news makes them feel at least they have a measure of control because they know what's coming. So with that said, you're going to choose what you watch, and the news can become an echo chamber. So limit your social media, limit your news, limit all of those things, because it's not that it's good or bad inherently, it's how we use it. So I would even go so far as to pray, like, Lord, am I watching too much news? Am I consuming the wrong kind of news? What do you want me to consume, Lord? And God will partner with you on that. And Jesus will say, well, probably don't want to watch this because it's all doom and gloom. Don't want to watch this because all about how these people are taking over, etc., etc. Now, am I saying not to be informed? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying to be careful about your content, your media consumption. This week, it was my week to teach. So the church that I teach at every other Wednesday during the school season. Now, after school season's over, people have football games, they have soccer practice, they have lots of things that get in the way. But during the fall and the winter and part of the spring, most kids are coming to church. So that, to me, logically means that's the time to teach. But this week's lesson was on media. So in the same way that as adults we need to be careful with our media, I was trying to make a lesson on how to do that for younger people. Now, what I did was I asked them a series of questions. How long do you stay on media? What media do you watch? Because the media that we practice is the media that we become. John Eldredge said in one of his podcasts that the input today becomes the thought life tomorrow. And so what are you putting into your mind? What are you putting into your thoughts? What are you rehearsing? I find myself, at least this year and probably last year too, going back a lot. And it's not, you could say it's nostalgia, but it's not really nostalgia in the same sense. It's like I'm going back in my mind, and Jesus is reminding me of these things from when I was younger. And I'm going back in there, like I'll be driving in my car from place to place, and Jesus will be like, well, we need to go back and re-explore that time when you were 8 years old, and fill in the blank. So that's something that is in my thought life, but that's because of the things that I consume. A lot of the things that I consume are podcasts with a biblical worldview. A lot of them are on more of a objective lens as much as possible. We can't be completely objective because we're human and we're flesh. But I'm rehearsing those thoughts in my mind. So if the media I'm consuming all the time is, oh, I'm so bad, oh, I'm so fat, oh, look at that girl on that magazine, she's so much better than I am, oh, look at that man, that he's the man, he's got all those boats and all of those big pieces of equipment, the boy with the most toys, is the one that wins the race. If you continually consume that, yeah, you're going to think that. And that's where a lot of temptation can come in. As I'm driving up to the place where I ski, right now on the left side of the car in real time, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 billboards, and most of them have to do with food. So I have, I don't know, maybe 10 miles, 15 miles before I get to where these food places are. And so I have that time to rehearse that I want that McDonald's chicken McNugget biscuit, or I have time to rehearse, man, I could really go for a blueberry waffle right now from Cracker Barrel. That sounds great. So that's intentional. I mean, that can become the thought life, and I'm kind of hungry, and thinking about it's actually making me kind of hungry, but skiing's the main objective right now, so I got to keep going. So that's a great example in real time as I'm heading up to the resort and talking to you guys. So with that said, and by that token, we need to be very careful with the media we consume. So that's why I suggest going back into your media, and there's actually a blog post about this. We'll put that in the show notes as well. At one point, I did write a article on nostalgia and how it can be good, but not staying there for too long. If we go back to the system of, and by the way, it was 10 miles. I see the same kind of billboards that I saw before, and the exit's up here, I think a mile away now. So it's like I get to the top of the hill and I can go get that food. But the media we consume can influence us, and not always for the better. So I had that article from my blog back when I still used to write one more consistently about nostalgia and how nostalgia is good, but if we get stuck in the past, it can be dangerous because we don't live in the present. The past is frozen. Now that doesn't mean it can't be unthawed, but you can't go back, and no matter how hard you try, the conditions from the good old days won't be replicated. So you were younger, you were more agile, everybody in your family was together, etc., etc. This really is a bad habit on Christmas that people have, or they try to overcomplicate Christmas, and we've talked about Christmas before, so I'm not going to rehash that. But the point is that you can get stuck, and going back to the colors, because I believe that is a great framework to use as well as a biblical worldview. Green people tend to be stuck in the good old days, like, oh well, back in the old days we did it this way, and there is a time and place for that, but there is also a time to try something new, move on with the knowledge from the past to guide you, but also know that there's grace there too, and not being afraid to reach out and say, God, this looks like something from the past, but it may not be. So the parts that I'm familiar with, help me with them, and the parts I'm not familiar with, help me with them more. But there being nothing new under the sun, that applies to watching those old shows. And you don't have to necessarily like them. Where I live, in the situation I live in, I watch a lot of old shows by proxy because I'll be walking in and out of the living room and my mother-in-law's watching old shows, and sometimes you're like, oh, that's intriguing, and you sit down for a minute and you're like, oh wow, well, the same thing they were struggling with then or they struggle with now. Another great example of that is on The Chosen, which I highly recommend, and I can't recommend it enough. The two brothers, Simon and Andrew, were in the show. They were having trouble paying off their taxes. So they owed taxes to the government, aka Rome, and they were having trouble paying them off. So they ended up having to go fishing more in order to make more money so that they can get those taxes paid off. Now, did that happen in the Bible, really? Is it there word for word? Absolutely not. Was that something that people during that time period struggled with, paying their taxes to Rome? The people that came in and told them what to do? Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people believe that Jesus the Messiah was going to be a great military leader upon the first time that he came, not a suffering servant. And you can find more information on that in Isaiah 53. Now, there is some controversy there because a lot of people who are hardcore Judaism and don't believe that Jesus is Messiah say that Isaiah 53 is the forbidden chapter that you can't read without a rabbi. And again, and some of that's even controversial. Like, oh, that's not really true, blah, blah, blah. But do your own research. But anyway, they thought he was going to be a great military leader, and he didn't turn out to be that. He was a suffering servant because he had to come first as a servant, next he'll come as a king, which we read about in Revelation. That scenario at that time really spoke to me because I'm thinking, man, I do have a lot of debt I need to pay off. Maybe I should go fishing. Wouldn't really work in my area because we don't have access to the ocean or a way to transport fish quickly and efficiently like they did in that time period because of where they were located. But the point is, it made me feel better because even back then, 2,000 years ago, they were struggling with debt. They were struggling with some of the same things we struggle with. And it's the universal human condition. So that's where I'm trying to get here, is that God is the solution to the human condition. And even, it's kind of interesting because even a lot of atheists, and I'm not throwing that around, and I've said it on several podcasts, but I'm not throwing that around saying that they're evil or they're bad. Let's be childlike in our faith, but not childish. So the difference between being childlike and childish is childlike's more like, whoa, look at that sunset. Whereas childish in our faith is going to be like, ooh, atheist, ooh, you're evil, you're bad, boo. But the point is that we need to be childlike in our faith and not childish. And with that said, again, what media are you consuming? Don't get stressed out about things. One of the greatest things I believe that we can have on this planet besides Jesus is peace. And if you have peace and Jesus, you got a lot. Now, I'm not saying don't make money. Make money to get something to eat. That's great. That's fine. But when we come right down to it, if we have Jesus and we have the peace of God that transcendeth all understandings, and that in Hebrew would be shalom, shalom, then we have what we need. You know, I mean, they can take my house, they can take my car, they can take my clothing. I don't know why you'd want it because it's pretty ratty. But, you know, they could take my job. And for those of you who have lost jobs in the current climate that we're in, we're praying for you. I'm hoping that you're able to get your job back or to find another job in a similar capacity to what you were doing. We are not a political podcast, so in terms of the side that people fall on, do your own research, and that's up to you. And pray about it, and whatever side you feel convicted to be on that side. But if you have Jesus, they can't take Jesus away from you. I mean, unless they give you like a complete lobotomy of your brain, that might be the only situation that I can think of where that might be the case. And I'm not saying that to make a soundbite, but I mean, I've seen footage of Alzheimer's patients that can't even remember their husband's name, and yet you go in there and their grandson talks to them about Jesus, and they're like, yeah, I know Jesus. He's my friend. I talk to him all the time. So if somebody who is not in their right mind can still have a relationship with Jesus, even after everything mostly has been already taken from them, that's pretty powerful. And keeping your peace is very important, because if you don't, it's like we talked about with the kids on Wednesday night. If you don't keep your peace and you don't keep your reason, they have you. The devil has you, and so does the world. Oh, well, you know what? Things are getting really bad. Food is getting short. The prices of eggs has gone up exponentially. You know what you should do? What? You should buy my product. I'll send it to you in a 10-gallon bucket, and it'll be enough food to feed you for 2 months. And all you have to do is pay $150 a bucket. Now, logically, you're like, I don't know about that. That's like a couple of grocery bills that I could probably figure out a little bit better. But when you're scared, you're like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. It's, you know, you never know. You never know. You might need it. Well, yeah, but point is, you don't have to pay somebody else for that kind of thing. So keep your peace. Don't let them scare you. Don't let them think that the world is completely destabilizing around you. God is completely sovereign. Now, is our world in a rough patch? Absolutely. But guess what? It's been in a rough patch ever since Jesus came. So he kind of turned the world on its head for the time period. So things have always been in a rough patch. I mean, what do you think they were saying about Rome, like 200, 400 years ago? Oh, man, I don't know how we're going to get through this. I don't like our current emperor. You know, oh, hail emperor, you know. So, I mean, nothing new under the sun. So, why are you worried? If you let it, worry will become your God. You can pray to it in the morning. You can pray to it in the evening. Dream about it, think about it. And you worry all the time? Yeah. It's going to become an idol in your life. And some people don't even realize that it is. So, I guess in summary, because we're getting pretty close, be not anxious, but prayer and petition about everything. learn to therewithal be content. With plenty, with lack, be content. Have peace, be content. And just watch what you put into your body to eat. Watch what you put into your mind to think about. And watch what you put into your soul to feed on. Because these things are connected. In our Western world, we don't think they are. But they are connected. And when one thing isn't working correctly, it affects everything. So I used to say it like this: if you eat like crap, you'll think like crap. Anyway, I don't know where we were going to go after this, so we'll see where God leads. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.